All right, let's get right into it. OpenAI just dropped GPT 5.5, and you need to know, this is not just another minor update. We're talking about something they're calling a new tier of intelligence, one that's really designed for real-world work. This is a leap forward that could fundamentally change how we use AI on the job.
And look, that's not just some slick marketing line. To get a feel for the real impact here, just take a look at this quote from an NVIDIA engineer who got to use it early. I mean, when a tool gets so baked into your daily work that taking it away feels like losing a limb, you know something big has just happened.
So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with what this new tier of AI actually is. Then we'll look at the numbers. Is it really smarter and faster? We have to talk about the price, because that's a big one. Then we'll get into the most important shift, how it moves from a simple assistant to a true agent. We'll see how that's revolutionizing big companies, and then we'll wrap up by asking, what's next?
Okay, let's start with the big idea here. The key thing to understand is that we've kind of moved into a whole new category of AI. This isn't just about a model that's a little bit better at answering your questions. No, this is a system that has a fundamentally new way of working.
And that new category is what people are calling agentic AI. This definition really gets to the heart of it. Think of it this way. The old models were like a brilliant intern you had to constantly micromanage, give them every single step. But in agentic AI, that's more like having a junior coworker. You can give it a high-level goal, and it will actually figure out the steps, use the software it needs, and problem solve on its own.
So, what does this new agentic power actually look like when you put it to the test? Well, the performance numbers, they tell a pretty compelling story.
For anyone in software development, this is a really big deal. On a benchmark that tests complex, real-world coding problems, GPT 5.5 just nails it with a score of 82.7%. That is a massive jump from its own predecessor and leaves its main competitor pretty far behind. We're not talking about just writing a simple function here. This is about handling the kind of messy, multi-step projects that developers actually work on.
And hey, it's not just for coders. On another test called GDP-Val, which spans 44 different professional fields, we're talking everything from finance to law to data science, GPT 5.5 hits expert-level performance almost 85% of the time. It's like having a specialist in dozens of fields all at once. And this quote from an early tester, Dan Schipper, is perfect because it gets at what those numbers feel like. He says the model has conceptual clarity. It's not just spitting back code it's seen before. It seems to understand the why behind the problem, which lets it reason its way to a solution. That is a game changer.
Of course, all this new capability comes with a brand new price tag, and that brings us to probably the most debated part of this whole release, the cost. Now, at first glance, the API pricing table might give you a bit of sticker shock. The standard GPT 5.5 is double the price of 5.4 for every token, and the Pro model? Whoa, that's a 12x jump on the output side. This is where a lot of people get hung up.
But here's the core argument from OpenAI. It all hinges on a trade-off. Yes, you pay more for each token, but, and this is a big but, because the model is so much smarter, it uses far fewer tokens to get the same job done. The idea is that your total cost per task could actually go down, even while the cost per token goes up.
But for big companies, the math changes completely. At the enterprise level, running on the latest NVIDIA hardware, this number, 35x, is everything. The cost per million tokens reportedly drops by a factor of 35. Let me say that again, 35 times cheaper. That just flips the whole economic equation on its head and makes this incredibly attractive for large-scale corporate use. So we've talked power, we've talked cost, but how does this actually change how we work day to day? This is where we really see that shift, from a simple assistant to a genuine agent. This is the new workflow. It's not just prompt in, answer out anymore. You give it a goal, and it starts by planning its approach. Then it uses the tools it needs, whether that's running code or browsing the web. Crucially, it then checks its own work. And if it hits a wall, it actually tries to figure out a way around it. Your job changes from being a micromanager to more of a high-level director. And look at what this means in the real world. These aren't just theories. An OpenAI finance team processed nearly 72,000 pages of tax forms and finished 2 weeks early. It helped discover a new mathematical proof. A professor built a complex research application in just 11 minutes. This is real, tangible work getting done at a speed that was impossible before.
Now, these individual stories are amazing, but the real revolution happens when you scale this up across a whole company. This is the point where AI stops feeling like just another software tool and starts to feel like a part of the workforce.
And a change this big doesn't just happen overnight. It's really the result of a decade-long partnership between OpenAI and NVIDIA, which started way back in 2016. This deep collaboration between the AI model builders and the hardware makers, that's what was needed to get to this level of performance and efficiency.
But for any large company, the first question is always, is it secure? How can we let an AI coworker touch our system safely? Well, NVIDIA's own rollout gives us a blueprint. Every single employee gets their own sandboxed environment. There's a zero data retention policy. Access to sensitive systems is read-only. This whole framework tackles the biggest fears that have been holding back corporate AI adoption.
And the scale we're talking about here is just staggering. OpenAI is committed to deploying over 10 gigawatts of these NVIDIA systems. To give you some perspective, 1 gigawatt is enough to power a large city. This is one of the biggest tech infrastructure projects in history, and it's all aimed at powering this new kind of AI.
So all of this leads us to one final and maybe the most profound question of all. Where is this train actually headed? When Sam Altman announced this, he didn't just call it a new product. He called it the completion of a specific phase of intelligence development. Think about that. Not just another step, but the end of an era. It's a really bold claim that frames this not just as a release, but as a major milestone on the long road to AGI.
And that's really the question we're left with, isn't it? If a model this incredibly capable represents the end of one chapter in AI development, it forces us to ask an even bigger question. What in the world does the beginning of the next chapter look like?